Let's spend a few minutes exploring the difference of leg positions and its effect on the body. Now, the more we have a broader stance, it would make sense that the more stable we are. There's some place out here that gives us this pyramid-like structure. We should have 3 points of contact under each foot. The pad of the big toe, we call the first metatarsal head. The pad of the little toe, not the toe itself, but the pad just before the toe begins, called the fifth metatarsal head. And the center of your heel, the heel is called your calcaneus. These are your 3 points of contact on each foot. So in fact, I actually have 6 points of contact underneath both feet in total. The wider we have the feet, the broader what we call the base of support. And as long as my body stays inside this base of support, I'm having a pretty confident idea that I'm going to be able to stay upright against the force of gravity. Now, what happens when my feet get closer together? The legs draw near. Now my base of support becomes much narrower, and I don't have as much freedom to move my body and still stay inside my base of support. If I were to take too much of my body weight outside of that kind of imaginary circle that outlines my feet, and I were to perhaps shift too far forward, I'm either going to fall down or I'm going to need to take a step. By taking a step, I've just reestablished a new base of support, connecting both feet together. That's primarily how we walk. It's a controlled fall with every step. So we can affect the body in many ways based on where our feet are. Now, if the feet are very close together, that's going to be obviously a smaller base of support. If I were to bring one foot forward into a forward split or stride position, although I have a long base of support, it's very narrow, which means it's going to be very challenging to keep my body balanced left to right. Forward and backwards, I'm fine, but as soon as I start shifting one way or the other, it becomes a lot more challenging. Just try walking a tightrope. Now, if I were to simply lift one foot off the ground, that foot is no longer in contact, so the only base of support I have is the outline of this single foot that's on the contact of the ground. That means I have got to keep the average center of my mass directly over this foot somewhere inside of that base of support. So a single leg stance, that is why it's more challenging to balance on than when both feet are on the ground. And when they're even wider, this is a much easier stance. So we can play around with challenging your level of balance simply by knowing where your feet should be. This is challenging, this not so much, this not so much. Now, aside from that, bringing one leg forward will start to create rotation in my body. That primarily is going to occur within my pelvis. As I take my left leg and bring it forward, my pelvis is going to rotate to the right. So if through the movement screen you've discovered that you have difficulty with pelvic rotation going right, it may be that putting your left leg forward and encouraging that pelvic position of right rotation, that might be something really good. So when you're doing your gym exercises and it requires one leg forward, you may opt to bring the left leg forward. Of course, assess before and after to see if you're on the right track. But just by knowing which foot should be forward could be a game changer in your workout and acquiring some really nice performance in whatever sport or activity you enjoy. So aside from knowing which leg forward to control pelvic rotation, it can also give you a better understanding of rib rotation. Because if you recall through the book and some of these videos, I've often mentioned how the pelvis and the rib cage, when moving through space, move in opposition. So if that left leg is forward and the pelvis is encouraged to the right, when I'm walking, the opposite arm is swinging forward, which is going to encourage the rib cage to go to the left. So I say this because if you're doing your movement screening and you're checking in with the rib cage and you notice that going right is fine, but going left you're restricted, it could again be a good scenario to have your left leg forward because left leg forward is going to encourage the pelvis to rotate to the right. So if I'm facing forward with my torso, with a right rotation of my pelvis, this is actually creating left rotation of my rib cage. So if I were to freeze and square out my pelvis, you'll see that I'm actually rotated to the left with my ribs. So if you have difficulty rotating the ribs to the left, having left leg forward may be a great position for you. So don't be surprised if some of the movements in your program are going to encourage stepping up with one leg more often than the other, or doing a lunge on one side more often than the other. Because the goal of the program is to start to allow your body to experience a freedom of movement, a balancing effect between the tension of all the muscles in your body, a restoration of your posture as best we can, getting it back to a central place. And that may require one leg doing a little bit more work for a certain period of time, more than its counterpart.